I'd like to welcome everybody to the June Town Hall meeting in our new location. Basically, in our ever-going search for cost reductions, I made the decision to move it back here because there's no need for us to be paying to rent the church and pay their employees and use their equipment when we have everything right here. So from this point forward, all the town halls will be here. We are limited to the capacity of this room, what's it, 135 by fire marshal. But of course, it's always available online for review, either live or after the fact. But quick announcement about that. And timing, we only have this room for the rest of the year until 5 p.m. Of course, in between us stopping and them starting, we've got to reset the whole room. So we are going to have a hard stop at about what time? 4:40, for enough time to reset the room. So I think in the future, we're going to start this meeting at 2:30 and go to 4:30. So we've got the usual 2-hour time slot. But this month, making the change, we left it at 3. So that's the public service announcement. We've got a lot going on right now. I've been very, very busy these last couple of weeks. We got a lot of big stuff coming at the board meeting next week. I'm not going to go over any of that. Still a lot of work to do. As we mentioned, the reserve study was done. We've been spending a lot of hours in meetings reviewing in fine detail everything to do with the reserve study. So we'll be presenting that in summary at the board meeting. We're not quite ready to publish all the detailed reports just yet, because this is literally hot off the press. We're making adjustments yesterday. And we've got more meetings this week and more meetings next week before we even get to the board meeting. So it's still a bit of a work in progress. We think we're about 95% complete at this point. So we'll be ready to talk about it at the board meeting, and then at some point in the near future after that, be able to publish some actual data. But for the agenda today, we've got Beth doing a marketing update, a quick update on all the road work that's going to be done this summer by Matt. And then Scott is going to do a Tanasi update. And then a little update on the land plan. We've got some things in motion. Nothing has gotten over the finish line yet on any of them. But just want to give a quick update on where we are with some of the land sales that we're pursuing. That was part of our plan. If you go out on the website, there's a tab called The Plan. That was part of CCI purchase. That actually has a lot of detail about the land we were planning to sell back when we bought all that property. So with that, I will turn it over to Beth for her marketing update.
Thank you, John. Let's see, I think I'm going to need these. To that point, I apologize. Well, first of all, my name's Beth, like John said, and I oversee a lot of different things, but what we're going to talk about today is the marketing program. And I do talk really fast, so I apologize for that. But the positive is this is recorded, and these slides are going to be available online after the fact. And I do have a lot of numbers, so I apologize. And if you don't love marketing and numbers, I apologize for that too. So with that, let's get started. So the vision statement for the marketing program has always been to ensure that Tellico Village property owners can sell their home on a timely basis and at a fair price in any economic, real estate, or competitive environment. The objective is to build awareness of the Tellico Village brand, its unique appeals and benefits among national, regional, in-state, and local target audiences in order to influence the sale of Tellico Village homes and lots and to strengthen property values. So a little bit of background, because we do have about 50% of Tellico Village has turned over within the last 5 to 6 years. So we have a lot of new people who were not here in the past when we started the marketing program. So just a little bit of brief history. Not marketing Tellico Village had been tried previously with disastrous results. Cooper Communities ended their marketing initiatives in early 2000, and National Recreation Properties, Inc. concluded promoting the community in 2006. The results from this period were residential sales were down 60%, property values were down 15%, and the average time on market for a home to sell, if it could sell, was 7 to 8 months. In 2011, there were only 88 homes sold in all of Tellico Village. In 2012, the national housing market was improving, the economy was rebounding, and 77 million baby boomers were approaching retirement. The challenge was that no one knew anything about Tellico Village. In the spring of 2012, two village volunteers, Joe Bogardus and Fred Toucher, drafted a plan to relaunch the Tellico Village brand. And both of those gentlemen are with me here today, back here. And they have donated 13 years of their time volunteering on the marketing subcommittee. And I think we owe them a great gratitude for all the work that they've done. I was also hired at that time, and the board allocated $113,000 for development costs to build a website, to create materials in the end of 2012. And then in 2013, the budget for marketing was $300,000, and as they say, the rest is history. So just briefly to show, residential sales increased 160% from 2012 to 24. Months on market has decreased from 7 to 8 months down to on average about 2 post-COVID. Property values are the highest in history and increased 129%. In summary, since 2013, the introduction of the marketing program, Tellico Village residential real estate market has triple-digit growth on both sales and property values. Time on market has declined from 7 to 8 months down to 2. And while other factors have impacted this performance, the economy improving, COVID-related demand, the marketing program has been a major contributor. And let's take a little bit of a closer look about how the marketing program works. So the real estate purchase cycle starts with awareness, consideration, preference, first preference, and then a purchase. This is called a purchase cycle. In Tellico Village, we bring a lot of people into the top tier, the awareness. But the point is you have to get them to come through the cycle to purchase. So we do that by using our website, articles, social media. We have digital programs, magazine advertising. We attend trade shows. We have information materials. We use billboards. We have our personnel, the Welcome Center. We do direct marketing campaigns. We offer day tours and have property owner tour guides. We have over 40 people that are property owners that volunteer their time to show people around. Web and digital and PR programs generated over 50% of all the qualified leads from 23 to 24. If you combine referrals and word of mouth, they contribute about 16%, and you can see in the pie chart that all the other items that I talked about previously all add to the bottom line. Marketing program sales equal 2/3 of all residential sales, so every property that sold last year in Tellico Village, 67% can be traced back to the marketing program. Tellico Village must market nationally as recent program sales moved here from 45 different states. California, Illinois, Florida, Tennessee, and Ohio are the top 5 and equal 53% of all purchasers. This is a graph showing you of our search optimization and our AdWords and where we go out to find people and the people that are looking for us. The dark orange are states that we have a lot of activity, and you can see we are all across the country. Tellico Village Marketing Program has a uniquely successful in enabling Tellico Village residents to sell their home on a timely basis and at a fair price. Sales from marketing program leads currently equal about 2/3 of all MLS sales, and Tellico Village must market nationally in order to maximize residential sales and property values. The marketing program drives the real estate. Now we're going to briefly look at 2024 year-end review. This is the latest example of the positive impact that marketing has had on residential sales and property values. Residential sales total home was up 5.3%, while existing homes were up 20%, and new homes, that's new construction, were down 15%. Residential sales from program leads, like I said, was 67% last year, up from 62%. Property values increased on total home 8.1%, but existing or resale homes 9.2%. This performance was achieved in an evolving real estate market where we saw a huge shift. From 21 to 23, new home sales increased 82%, while existing resales decreased 6%. From 23 to 24, it flopped. New home sales were down 15%, and existing home sales increased 20%. The significant increase in existing home inventories have been anticipated for some time. Since COVID, many U.S. homeowners have postponed selling their home. They would have to pay higher mortgage rates, low inventory, kept prices high nationally. We presented to the board and FAC 2 years ago that we felt a disproportionate number of Tellico Village homes may be put on the market sooner than other geographical areas. On average, an aging population has less control over when to move on to the next stage of life, and our demographics in Tellico Village skew much older than the general population. The pronounced marketing shift to existing homes is compounded because of declining new home construction as the village reaches build-out. Existing home sales far increase and exceed other benchmark areas. We've often been asked to benchmark Tellico Village against others. Tellico Village, as I said, saw a 20% increase, while total U.S. a 0.3%. The southern region actually saw a decline of 0.5%, and Fairfield Glade, which is the most similar community to us, saw a 4.1%. Rarity Bay saw a huge decrease at 43.6%. Existing home property values also outperform other geographical regions. When we take ourselves and we use median home price, which is a common method used, as I said, Tellico Village saw an increase of 8.4%, total U.S. was 4.7%, the southern region was 2%, and Fairfield Glade was 2.7%. Property values and home equity increase in Tellico Village at the 8.4%, total about $57,000 per existing home. This is much greater Tellico Village average home equity increase than any of our benchmark geography. If you look at the 2% for the southern region, that would be about $13,000. 2.7 that Fairfield saw would have been about $18,000. 4.7, which was total U.S., would have been about $32,000, and Tellico Village was at $57,000. The property home equity increase totaled over $326 million based on all the homes completed so far in Tellico Village. When we look at the marketing investment, our budget has been held for the last 9 years at $405,000. The impact of inflation has been offset every year by program efficiencies, and our marketing investment is favorable with other communities. Wind River spends about $1 million a year. Fairfield Glade last year spent about $275,000, which you can see the results of softer sales and property values beyond Tellico Village. The POA's net expenses is actually less. A substantial portion is offset by direct realtor, contractor, and advertising revenues. Last year, the direct revenues come in at just over $141,000 and meant that the POA's actual net contribution was $263,000 and represented for every dues-paying property owner was about $38.34. Now, I always get the question, is that the all-in cost? Well, if you want to take the all-in cost, which would be the building and staff, it would be around $89 a year. Some conclusions for 24. Tellico Village significantly outperformed sales and property values versus all benchmark geography. Existing home sales increased 20%, about 5 times that of Fairfield Glade. In 24, home equity increased 8.4%, or around $57,000 per existing home. This was accomplished with 24 marketing investment totaling about $38 per dues-paying homeowner. Now we're going to take a brief look at 2025 and beyond. I felt like I should add like a Toy Story, and beyond. That's to get y'all to wake up. All right, so our marketing objective for this year is to increase residential sales 3.5%, which will mean that we need to facilitate and assist in the sale of 414 homes within Tellico Village. Program sales would mean that 273 homes will be able to be traced back to the marketing program, which would equal 66% of total MLS sales. And property values would average about $268 per square foot, which is a decline of 3.5%. Throughout the budget process, the marketing team has expressed caution regarding the real estate market and the outlook. Several factors intensified this concern for us: current economic and housing market status, internal marketing program trends and indicators that we've been watching since mid last year, early 25 sales and inventory considerations, and the level of investment. Current data indicated that a significantly improved national housing market cannot be forecast at this time. The 30-year fixed mortgage rates are historically high at 6.9%. The Fed interest rate cuts are still in question. Existing home sales were the lowest since 1995. In April of 25, existing home sales fell to the slowest April pace since 2009. The real estate market's outlook is fluid, especially because of the number and nature of major federal policy changes, tariffs, potential tax cuts. There's a lot of unknowns. And it's important that the national market do well because most of the people that want to move to Tellico Village need to sell their home where they live currently. Although our qualified leads and discovery requests were very strong last year, our discovery visits started to decline to pre-COVID levels, which could impact sales performance this year. Tellico Village residential sales was soft during January and April time period versus prior year. A lot of impacts of this were market conditions and bad weather. MLS sales were down 10% versus last year. Property values were flat. April sales average is 77 days on market, which is up 50% versus the fourth quarter of last year. The end of April inventory of 110 existing homes, and that's less pending sales, or a 4.1 month supply. As anticipated, a total of about 301 existing homes in Tellico Village could be delayed since COVID and be placed on the market during 2025, in addition to the normal turnover that we see. We can see a continued soft performance and excessive inventories could result in increased time on market and a decrease in property values. Given a challenging 25, we asked for our first increase for the first time in 10 years, but last year we had a tough budget and we were not able to add any monies into the marketing program. But what we were able to do is shift some monies within our department to add more to this line item. So we added $10,000. After inflation, the effective spending is only $298,000, and even adding a little bit of an increase, it's actually 0.4% less than last year. This just gives you a slide to show you how inflation has impacted us as we've held the marketing budget, but we've been able to overcome that through efficiencies. Some examples of efficiencies that we've done is we've optimized our paid digital between SEM and Performance Max. We've leveraged digital partnerships and eBlast and social sponsorships. We paused trade shows this year. We didn't attend any. Most of the reason for that is our most effective trade show is the Chicago show, and it was not offered this year. We've implemented multiple eBlast programs and lead database to stimulate discovery visits. We've added some billboards in Lenore City and Route 72. We've taken the dashboard reporting and analytics in-house and reallocated that money to working programs, and we'll continue to make mid-course corrections as needed throughout to maximize our performance for this year. The marketing objective requires a 17% increase in existing home sales with a 4.4 decline in effective spending. This is going to be difficult to accomplish. A 3.5 square foot property value decline is anticipated due to home level inventory expected to exceed consumer demand, and this would represent about a $25,000 decrease in home equity. The property owners may experience some delays in time it takes to sell their home, and potential villagers could lose a portion of property values increased last year. But the marketing team is doing everything we can to minimize any negative impact on the Tellico Village property owner. A glimpse into the future. Based on history, between 30 and 35% of Tellico Village property owners will sell their home in the next 5 years. During this period, at least 17 to 2,000 properties will sell. To many, their home is their largest asset, and to many, it will have to fund the next phase of their life. The marketing program directly impacts residential sales and property values at a far greater level than most any other program or initiative. To date, Tellico Village marketing program has delivered on its objectives to allow property owners to sell their home on a timely basis and at a fair price. A fully funded marketing program is a prerequisite to continue to deliver for the Tellico Village property owner and to the future. And like I said, that was fast. And with that, I'm turning it over to Matt.
How are you advancing? Just the arrows? Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Matt Benoit. I'm the interim general manager and director of public works, and I wanted to run through our summer of 2025 road maintenance program, which is actually already underway. We have two types of road maintenance programs. The first is called Polymer Modified Master Seal. We just always abbreviate with the acronym PMM. PMM is a street sealant that extends the life of asphalt. It's been used in Tellico Village for 4 years. This will be the 5th application. It's a very cost-effective maintenance application, but unfortunately it requires the street to be closed twice from approximately sunrise to sundown. If we get a good hot day, we're able to open it around 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, so sundown is worst case. Rain delays the entire schedule. If the road is wet, we simply can't make the application. So when rain delays occur, that street that was scheduled for that day is moved to the back of the list so that the residents who are scheduled for the next day can continue with their plans to stay in, watch Netflix, catch up on books or whatever. But we do recognize that results in some inconvenience. If we could control rain, we would control that as well. So the best place to stay updated on when your street is scheduled, particularly if it has been rescheduled, is tellicovillagepoa.org/roadwork schedule. This website is updated daily, and we even update it to the point of making note of when roads are open. So it's absolutely your best source. We've had some concerns raised about the safety of this application. The safety data sheet identifies precautionary statements. Don't inhale it. It may cause irritation of the respiratory tract. Don't have eye contact. Contact with the eyes may cause irritation, skin contact, and ingestion. So let's all agree amongst us. Don't smoke it. Don't put your hands on it and rub it in your eyes. Don't put your hands in it and rub it on your skin. And please don't eat it. There is no reason to do any of those things. I put for you the safety data sheet. You've got limestone, asphalt, understandably. Quartz, I have kaolin, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, and bentonite. If you Google each of those things, all of those exist in several household items. Many of you probably have quartz on your countertops. Again, don't eat them. But there is absolutely, everything about this has been a journey of different applications of different things. Some have failed, some have succeeded, but we finally feel like we found something that's both safe and very effective. The second type of road maintenance that we do is called a mill and overlay. Mill and overlay involves grinding and removing a top layer, approximately 1.5 inches of asphalt, and replacing it with 2 inches of asphalt. The mill and overlay program is slated to start in July. We don't have an official date yet. The same website that I just gave you will identify exactly when we plan to start. Roads to be completed in July and into August include, I'm not going to read them to you, you can all see them. Mill and overlay does not require closing roads. There will be traffic flaggers in place with single lane closures, so there may be brief delays in traffic, but we don't close down streets for mill and overlay. I want to make this point that we try to go about from a cost-effective standpoint. You never want to find yourself in a situation where you have to replace a road. Replacing roads is something probably in the neighborhood of $60 to $100 a square yard. Everything about our road maintenance program is predicated on seal it, okay? And by sealing it, we're trying to extend the life of the street for approximately 5 years. We're able to seal at something in the neighborhood of $1.50 a square yard. So if you can invest $1.50 a square yard and fight off 60 and even delay the investment of a mill and overlay, which is at about $19.50 a yard, you kind of see what we're going about is never let your streets fail to the point where you have to replace them. So I think what we've got is a very good plan. I do recognize that there are inconveniences associated with what we're doing, but I simply wanted to share with you, I think we found a very cost-effective approach to maintaining your streets. I know if you drive around, you can find streets worse than in Tellico Village. I live in Lenore City. Every trip down my residential street, I look at it and go, that would not fly in Tellico Village. But I don't call anybody in Lenore City, they'll figure it out. But we've been through quite a journey, and I want to give credit to a number of PSAC members who invested a lot of time and effort in investigating where we stand here today. And thank you, that concludes my presentation.
So I'm just going to quickly go through the construction update on Tanasi, and I'll go through this slide very quickly because I've got photos of pretty much every one of these items that we're going that is on here. So basically, over the last 3 weeks, we were able to place over 210 cubic yards of concrete into the footers. I think most of you, if you've been driving around the neighborhood, you saw our pump truck there. We will be pumping into the walls in a few, sometime next week. But this is just us pumping into the back end of the footers there at the Tanasi. Little bit of steel in there. We've got 14 foot tall and number 8 rebar, so that's 1 inch thick, 2 layers there. And they were putting up the rebar there. Those walls will be our basement walls. They'll be the walls of the cart barn and also the retaining wall to hold the soils where the restaurant is going to go to the left hand, or to the left hand side of the drawing there and the photo there. We're also installing the forms this week. We've pretty much gone all the way around the building. We're in the process of forming up for the garage doors and the personnel doors on the back side of the building. You can see there, they're up about 8 feet. They've got another 6 feet to go, so they'll be double stacking the forms there. We did have to put in a new fire water line. I think I mentioned that at the last town hall. In order to do that, we had to bore underneath 444. So I know a number of people. I think I got 3 phone calls when we had our backhoe out there digging, saying, I can't see to get out of the parking lot because we were on the other side. We had to dig down to find the sewer line there so we didn't hit it and get the other end of this. So here we just pushed it on through. You can see what they're doing here is a couple of mornings ago they were welding on the last 20-foot section of the pipe, and then they just pushed that down into the pipe, underneath the roadway using that machine there on just like what looks like a little railroad track. The contractor now is in the process of extending that line over to the main line on that side of the parkway. We did install a new guardrail along the cart path. We put in 200 feet of guardrail there, and we will be adding a similar type guardrail on the other side that comes from behind the 9th green down toward where the boat dock is, the access to the boat dock. That's a pretty steep ramp there, and while you wouldn't end up in the lake, it would hurt if you fell off, if you drove a cart over there. So we thought we should put one there. The other choice was to put thorny bushes, and I decided that the guardrail was a little bit of a better idea than that. Before I go on to TAP, I do want to say that from a schedule standpoint, with all the rain, we've had perhaps the wettest April and May in Tennessee, East Tennessee history, one of the wettest, and that has significantly delayed us. We only got 6 working days in May, and half of each of those days, or some of those days, was pumping the water out of the footer so we could go in and actually do the work there. So right now, we're running several months behind schedule, and we're looking at a second quarter instead of first quarter 26 opening for Tanasi. So we've pushed it down, we've pushed it back a couple of months, unfortunately. Now, once we get under roof, we'll try and make some of that up, but at this point, we can't guarantee that that will happen. So from TAP, basically, the main pump station, we did have, as most of you know, we had a bid opening on May 29th. The bids came back, and we only got one bid. The bid was significantly higher than we had anticipated. We had a meeting yesterday to meet with the bidder, and we discussed a number of options on how they can reduce the bid. We've taken a 2-week kind of time frame to redo a couple of drawings, to relook at some value engineering, and to see what we can do to get the price, the costs down. We did identify some significant items yesterday during that meeting. Once we get those, I'll be able to come back to the board and make a recommendation. I&I reduction efforts, as I'm sure you're aware, we were over in Kahidi. We did a pilot test over there where we installed 5-inch extensions on 191 tanks that we had identified. We actually identified 212 tanks that needed extensions. 12 of those, the extension would have put the top of the tank above the floor in the lower level of those houses, so we could not install extensions on those. If we would, it runs the risk of backing up sewage into the house. We felt like that was an unacceptable solution. And then there were 9 that we had already had the extensions, and also we installed 191. At this point, the data is, it shows in some cases about a 10 or a 15% reduction, which is significantly less than we had hoped. But the data is not really conclusive. We're still re-looking at it. We're waiting for some more rain days and as we get additional rain, we'll be able to continue to do that analysis. And I know depending on where you live in the village, I know a lot of people said, oh, well, like Tuesday, we got 1.25 inches of rain here at Tanasi. We got less than half an inch over at Kahidi. So it really depends. If you're sitting at home saying, it rained a lot last night, did you get some good data? Well, if you were living in Kahidi and you asked me that question, I probably got some good data. If you were living in Tanasi or over on this side of the village, we might not have gotten that data. We did find, however, and we now are into the main village. As of this morning, we've got a total of 1,849 tanks inspected. And the reason why we're continuing these inspections is we certainly hope, as we find older tanks, and we're now into the Tokwa neighborhood, that we will find more tanks where there are issues. We are finding a number of them where they have cracked lids. We're replacing those lids. We are also, those cracked lids, in addition to be a potential source of I&I, they are also a safety issue. Some of these cracked lids are very seriously cracked, and if the homeowner or a landscaper or somebody mowing your grass were to step on that lid accidentally, you run the risk of falling into the tank. And the damage you can do to breaking legs, hips, and all. So we feel like this is something that we should be doing anyway. We also found 12 tanks that had inoperable pumps, and they had no high-level alarm going off. So the homeowner did not know that the tank was either overflowing or about to overflow. Now, we repaired those, and we did a check to see whether or not those particular alarm panels had 2 separate circuits, one for the pump, one for the alarm. In every case, they did. So we're going through that. So, and again, I think I hit the safety issue. And then this is just the thermometers that we've been publishing. This is, again, the percentage of remediation. So we're about 25% done. matter of fact, I forgot, these have a little error in them, which Joel pointed out to me this morning, so I will correct that. But we're about 33% done on the inspections and about 23% done on replacing the tank lids and putting the extensions on. The public works staff who does that work, they were a little busy the last couple of weeks. One of our subcontractors who does a lot of the tank installations passed away, so we've been trying to make up that time with our public works people and trying to get new tanks installed. And also, they haven't been able to get out there. They will be hitting it again this tomorrow and then next week to catch back up. That's all. Thank you.
Back to me. All right, so just a quick land development. P1, which is the one that we told the community about several months ago, I think back at the first of the year, actually. It is 17 acres by the boat docks in Kahiti. We are in a due diligence period with a contractor, and that period is nearing an end. So by August, we should know for sure if that's going to move forward or not. But that one's looking good. And then Kahiti P2 and 3, these were actually just put in the telegram on Tuesday. Those were parcels also purchased from the CCI that were indicated as possible single-family homes, and those are being platted for single-family home sites. There's a total of 9. We had some diagrams in the telegram. You can go check those out, and those will be going on the market in the near future. And P38 is also still in a due diligence period that ends in September. I don't really have much else to share on that except that it's moving forward and a lot of work is being done to see if that's going to be a viable project or not. And that's as you leave Tellico Village by Poplar Springs. We did receive a few questions ahead of time that I was asked to answer, so I'm going to do that. One of the questions is in regard to the Maple Hill road commercial that was discussed a lot at the last town hall. And it was, did the ACC or attorney provide the property owner guidance along with the red book in the aesthetic and design? And the answer to that is yes. They have the red book and it was explained to them, and certain sections pointed out that are really critical, and they're aware of that. And then it says, also in that same vein, close proximity and supportive harmony of is this residential areas or commercial? Well, in the red book, it's talking about commercial. So it would say if there's a commercial building already there and a new one is being permitted, it has to be in harmony with the commercial that's already freestanding. So like if you looked at Village Square where the Welcome Center is, if we were to build a new building there, it would need to be in harmony in that surrounding area. You wouldn't want to let them build a hot pink building with a green roof or anything. The next question was about P38, and the question was, what was the original purchase price of all the properties? So like John said, the plan is still available on the website. The total purchase price for buying out the developer rights and all of the acres that we purchased was $5.3 million. Also, as was stated in the many town halls we did before we purchased that, and the promise that we made to property owners when we said we were going to spend $5.3 million was that we were going to identify certain parcels of land that would be available for sale. And we have been working on that for a number of years, and that's the parcels that we just discussed with you. So all the proceeds from those sales will go to buy down the debt. That note comes due at the end of 2026, and the amount due on it at that time would be $2.9 million. So our goal is to pay that off. I was also asked what the appraised value of P38 is, and in today's dollars, it would be around $1 million. And I was asked if what the impact of water and sewer would be and the cost on the POA. Any infrastructure improvements on any of the parcels that we discussed today would be at the cost of the buyer, not the POA. So there's no cost to us for that. And with that, we are going to start our open forum. And just as a quick reminder, we ask everybody to stay a maximum of 3 minutes in your conversations. We do have the clock going, and it does have a timer on. So help us all remember when our time is up. And it's a little startling the first time, but with the thunder, I don't know if we'll know which is which. And I'll let you read the rest of it. So what we're going to do is we're going to take questions from this podium. So if you can line up on that side and make sure you press the green button. And if you'll say what your name is and where you live, that's very helpful for us. So with that, the floor is open.
Got a green button. Thank you. Good afternoon. My name's Linda Garza. I'm with the HOA. I'm also a Tocoa resident who's been here since 2018. Question for Scott and the board. I had the opportunity to attend the Loudoun Utility Board workshop Monday afternoon. During that presentation, there was a call out, obviously on their agenda were multiple water and sewer initiatives, one of which was including a MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, with the Tellico Village POA. The Memorandum of Understanding is currently on their website, indicates that they are requesting a task order be approved by the Loudoun Utility Board. Some excerpts from that is the recital indicates that they are asking for the approval of a task order for LJA Engineering to produce a preliminary engineering report and feasibility study to address potential solutions at the Care-In pump station. Also indicates that the completion of this task order will require the coordination with and cooperation of TVPOA, and the study will benefit both the utility and TVPOA by providing alternatives and costs for potential improvements on either system that could address capacity issues and at pump stations. So my question to the board, and Scott, to you as well, is what are the benefits to Tellico Village POA? What should the residents expect as a result of this relationship? And any information in regards to the timeline, and the approval process?
Thank you for that question, Linda. I believe the timeline is for the board to look at and approve that task order. I think that's one of the things that will be taken up at the next board meeting. The benefit here is obviously one of the constraints that we have, one of the things we were looking at, and the reason that the originally our TAP plan had a tank in it was the inability for LUB to transport enough of our waste across the lake over to their treatment center. This study is to look at options of increasing that. The benefit there, of course, would be that they could handle more of our waste, as well as the other growing waste of other customers for them in the area. We are trying to coordinate meetings with them and our engineers, Jacobs Engineers and LJA, so that we make sure that everybody's working together on the solutions.
And does that mitigate any of our project initiatives that were originally planned?
The benefit that it really has there is, assuming that it comes up with the answer that a lot of people are looking at, and that is an additional pipeline under there. And if they can handle the extra capacity, it would eliminate the need for a storage tank for us.
Oh, good news. One other question, since I have 53 seconds. We have had multiple conversations with you all, and residents have brought to you concerns in regards to the relationship with Jacobs Engineering. Maybe I missed it. Seems like the board doesn't talk a lot about why they continue with this relationship. What are the pros and what are the cons? Can you go into a little more information to help us understand why we continue with this relationship? What your feelings are from the benefits from maintaining it?
I think there's a couple of benefits there. One is obviously they're in the middle of the design on a number of projects, and to stop them now and move on with another project, with another engineer in a project that they've already designed or are currently designing would force the new engineer to start all over, and it would basically be sunk costs. They have a lot of history. They've done this, been working here, I think, since 2020. So they've got a lot of history there. And the other one is the quality of the engineers that they have. The two engineers that are the principal engineers and project managers for Jacobs have approximately 50 years of engineering experience, both licensed to design municipal water and wastewater systems, wastewater treatment systems. As a matter of fact, one of the engineers is an internationally recognized consultant. He consults around the world He is one of the first engineers that started working with the pressurized systems like we have here in the village, and was instrumental in setting up the Center for Decentralized Wastewater Management at the University of Tennessee. He is one of the best in the world, and he's working for us.
Great.
That's why we continue.
Thanks for all you do.
Hi, David Taylor from Mialacqua. I've got a question regarding what would be in the best interest of residents regarding upgrading our existing lift station. Of course, that's going to cost residents millions of our dollars. My understanding of the background, real briefly, is that Jacobs recommended replacing the lift station at a cost of $3.5 million, and the hope was that would include a $2.1 million TDEC grant, which is only available for new things like that. And they estimated that repair would cost $2.9 million, so, that was reasonably easy math. But the only bid we got back was $8.6 million, so that decision seems to me to be a little obsolete. And the grant seems likely to not be available in the end because we may not be able to meet the deadline for it. My understanding is Jacobs also didn't consider that the lift station pumps are only 8 years old and could be refurbished and, made to do more of what we need them to do. So in light of that, my question is, wouldn't it make the most sense in terms of prudence and fiduciary responsibility for the board to do two things? One, adopt a parallel strategy, meaning that we not only try to fix the existing Jacobs Engineering proposal, but also we seriously consider the TAP 2.0 recommendations about the lift station upgrades. And then secondly, and this I would regard as really important, get a second opinion from a different engineering firm before making a decision and spending money on the lift station. I'd sort of appreciate getting a reply from either Mike or Joel, who have a lot more engineering expertise than I do, and also from John.
I'm going to defer to the board. Scott's
Well-
probably the guy.
Yeah, you gotta borrow a mic or.
Thank you, David. Real quick, guys, we're looking at all the options that are on the table. Matt's currently working with LUB with the MOU that was, Linda was, yeah, there she is. Good work going down to the LUB, thank you. Matt's looking at that to take that advantage to look, and we've asked, once we get that signed up, we'll roll that into Jacobs and see what they think about it. There are opportunities to go to other people. Right now, we're debating that. We're looking at we've asked Jacobs to go back and review the bid with SDI, which was the contractor that bid it. We set in, Mike and I and Matt all sat in on and Scott all sat in on a Teams meeting earlier this week for 2 hours. And some of the information that we got from the bidder didn't match what we understood the scope to be. So there's some opportunities there, and Matt's working with them, and Jacobs is working with them, and Scott's working with them. And as soon as we get more data in that space, it'll give us an opportunity to make the right decision. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I don't know that there's any full or perfect answer.
There is not a perfect answer.
Pushes it forward. John, I'd love to hear from you in particular. There we go, got a green light. Now, John, I'd appreciate hearing from you. Will the board be willing to get a second opinion from a different engineering firm? It would seem to me that's ordinary prudence when we're going to spend millions of dollars.
Well, I'm going to defer to either Mike or Matt. The challenges of a so-called second opinion, I mean, we've gotten second and third opinions from seasoned civil engineers that are on PSAC that have decades of design and engineering experience that have reviewed all these plans, but to go hire somebody to go review another engineer's work, we've had some discussions about it. I don't know, if Matt, if you could add any more color to it?
Let me just offer you this. I understand the appetite for how are you going to make a decision? Is that a fair characterization of what you're asking? Is how are you going to make a decision? Are you going to consider a second opinion? Do the numbers add up? Am I capturing that?
To me, pretty much, it's not so much, my idea wouldn't be you get somebody else to review Jacobs's work as to look at what our needs are, what the facts are about
I understand.
what's already there, and give their engineering expertise about that. I mean, to me, it's sort of, doctors telling you you need major surgery. It's smart to get a second opinion.
I understand.
And that doesn't mean you don't trust doctor number one necessarily, but it's just, they're smart.
Oh, sorry, time's up. I was going to answer your question. I'll answer your question. Here's my view. And this will be discussed by the board on Wednesday, but as simply as I could put it, my headlights go out 2 weeks. 2 weeks gives you the benefit of understanding, did the contractor understand what we wanted him to do? That's what Mike was alluding to. Some preliminary indications that the wires weren't touching. Once you have that information, then I think you're back into the realm of a discussion. Are we in the neighborhood of 3.5 million, or are we still in the neighborhood of 8 million? Both of those two paths would have very different considerations for the board. And I feel like, I've been doing city manager type stuff for about 25 years. Most of the time when I screwed up early in my career, I started trying to make decisions without all the information. So I've gotten patient, and I shared with the two board members yesterday, my headlights go out 2 weeks. You'll get, I believe, a significant amount of information. Once you have that information, I think the board is in a position to start saying, is this even a realistic project, or does it make sense to start all over, or does it make sense for someone else to review it? All those things are still on the table, but trying to speculate on that in the absence of information, to me, is like, why would you do it? You're 2 weeks away from a significant amount of information from which decision points become more clear. And that's why my headlights go out 2 weeks. Yeah. Sure. Sure.
So it sounds like we really gave a good answer for the first part of his question. The second part of his question, if I'm hearing you correctly, David, is that we had a $2.9 million rehab quote from Jacobs that was compared against the $3.5 million new. And the $3.5 million new had a $2.1 million grant. It could only be applied to the new. So it was a no-brainer for us to say, thumbs up, let's go new. But when you come in at $8.6 million, and then you find out from Jacobs that they were thinking that we had 30-year-old pumps in there, but we actually replaced them in 2017, that makes, that's per Kevin Himmel, that we put them in 2017. We went from the 50 horsepower. Eric said in the meeting that he did not know if they could be continuous speed, but when he found out they were within 8 years, he said all pumps made within the last 10 years are wired for continuous speed, not singular. Yeah, for VFDs. So anyway, so the question being that the 2.9 million quote had new pumps in there. Maybe we don't need those new pumps. If I'm reading David's question correctly, he's saying, shouldn't we get another engineering firm to look at rehab, not to look at what Jacobs did for the new? Nobody agrees that that's the way to go, is have another one engineering firm check an engineering firm. They're saying, let's go ahead and look at the rehab cost, because one of the questions I asked at our meeting was, Jacobs, how confident are you in your rehab quote? And Adam from Jacobs, I give the guy a lot of credit, very stand up. He said, I don't have confidence in that quote. So, to David's point.
For those of you who don't know me or I have not met, I'm Mike Braddock. I'm a board member. I'm also one of two liaisons along with Mr. Lackey to the PSAC committee. I have attended a majority of PSAC committee meetings, not only this year, but last year. I want to point out some facts that I think have been lost in part of the discussion. But let me, before I go there, point out one of the things that we heard very clearly yesterday in the meeting that Mike Lackey and Matt and I participated in, is we are in a very competitive environment right now in terms of contractors being available to do projects. The firm that bid on this project talked about already having a laundry list of, I don't know, half a dozen different projects that they could go to. They are challenged on staffing and having sufficient staff for the projects, and they're not hungry right now looking for their next project. So that's a competitive environment that we are operating in. One of the things that they cited, if I remember correctly, is they went out either to 4 or 6 electrical firms, electrical firms to do the work. Only 2 of them came back with bids. That told them there that basically the other firms are so busy and so much on their books, and this was done in the environment of having time constraints on our bid because we were trying to accomplish the obtaining the grant. So a lot of things to look at in that regard. In terms of the project, I think what we have to keep in mind is, first of all, on our PSAC committee, we have some folks with some extensive experience, both in past and current committee members on water and sewer projects. They have spent countless hours, volunteer hours, looking at these projects. The existing main pump station wet well is not designed for wastewater. It was designed for water. And that's a significant difference. The existing PSAC members also debated and thoroughly reviewed when they were considering this project the concept of using the existing wet well versus a new wet well. And they unanimously agreed the best option was to go with a new wet well design because it would be designed for wastewater, it would be far more efficient with the variable speed pumps, and it would basically meet current standards as was identified in a previous presentation I think that Matt did, because there are standards out there that Jacobs or any engineering firm has to design to. So I think give us a chance to gather some factual information, listen to the facts. We're working very hard to try and do the right thing from a long-term sustained perspective. The existing wet well that's there has been there for 40 years. It is, in my estimation, the biggest key in terms of any potential liability to Telco Village. That wet well goes down, we got a big problem. And it's not easy to mitigate it. So, and our workforce is challenged in terms of their confidence to continue to operate that wet well on a day in and day out basis, and particularly if there happens to be an upset. So let's gather some additional information, let's pull the facts together, and trust your PSAC members that are looking out for your best interests as they review the project. Thank you.
Want to rush up and say something? Okay, I'm Wendy Lamel from Tokwa Point. I spent the last 25 years of my life in heavy construction or EPC firms, engineering, procurement, and construction. But before that, I began in academia, so I'm not quite as impressed by the academic credentials because I have been involved in many meetings trying to develop constructability and in getting academics to become more practical and more cost conscious. Lynn, I think it's Lynn? Linda kind of stole the first of what I was going to say about the relationship. But what I would like to ask then, as we'll skip that, is Jacobs, are they a lump sum or are they cost reimbursable? Cost reimbursable?
They are cost reimbursable on their engineering work.
Okay, thank you. So what I'm hearing, they're cost reimbursable. They get paid to do the drawings. They get paid when our people like Mark, Joel, or Gary go over them and find errors, and then they get paid to redo the drawings. Pretty good racket. As I said, I had the 25 years, started in academia, finished working for 3 different large engineering companies based in Houston and in France. And one of the things I learned during that period was that the big company, one of the companies specialized only in small projects, so they were able to spread their overhead. But the other 2 companies were mega pump companies. One of them was pretty much the same size, but bigger than Bechtel, and bigger than Jacobs. It was Bechtel. They were a private company. And in fact, I worked on a project in which Jacobs was a joint venture partner in engineering one work area on site. And I learned that big companies have enormous overheads, and you can spread that out when you're on mega projects. You can't when you're on a small project. So when I moved here 7 years ago and I saw Jacobs was the village engineering company on contract, I was very surprised that a large company with huge overhead would have people working for a small village like us. Thank you. I think I made it.
I'm slow of foot and slow of speech, so please be patient with me. This took me 4 minutes to read at home. I'll try to read faster. I would like to first ask a simple yes or no question of each board member who's present. Do you think it's generally a good idea for a representative to know and to consider carefully the opinion of his constituents? Mr. Orr.
Here.
I can hear you. It's just yes or no.
Well, we all appreciate it. That's why we do these meetings. Why wouldn't we wouldn't do these meetings if we didn't appreciate the input. Right? That's the
Mr.
purpose.
Reddick.
In my opinion, we're not here to do polls. We volunteer our time. We do votes and board meetings. If you've got a comment or a question, you're on the clock. Please offer it. We're more than welcome to hear it, but we're not here to be polled.
Mr. Reed.
Of course we care.
Yes.
Mr. Lackey.
We care about our constituents. All of us do.
Thank you. I assumed that. A quick look at recent history. With the Tanasi Build Back Better plan, there was a $7 million expense incurred above insurance proceeds without the consent or the support of a majority of villagers, which could have been had if there was a special assessment. When you approached the Tennessee legislature regarding the $5,000 real estate transfer tax, on that day, there was misinformation stated right before the vote was taken. But a poll by Mr. Lowell Russell showed that a slim majority of villagers were opposed to moving forward with that action. You chose to move forward, and the will of the majority was ignored. Regarding our relationships with Jacobs, probably enough has been said about that, but there was a recent poll taken last week in only 3 days of respondents. 97% of property owners favor getting a second opinion on a project which is so large and so expensive. And to my knowledge, there have been no second opinions actually rendered or sent to the board. Number 4, a recent poll showed that 80% of villagers are in favor of an immediate pause on the $80 water surtax. I and many others have asked for a water fee pause until a more precise need has been determined. But up until now, that majority sentiment of village owners has been ignored. Regarding water rates, totally apart from the $80, 83% of villagers, when informed of your recent 5-year budget projections, said that water rates were too high already. I spoke in an earlier meeting of the ballistic cost of water here in Tellico Village, and Mr. Braddock responded that the Loudoun Utility Board has raised their rates, and so we must too. He neglected to mention, however, that over the past 2 years, for villagers who use 2,000 gallons of water, there is a 400 to 500% markup on whatever rates the Loudoun Utility Board is charging us. They charge us $3.57 in 2024, $4.17 in 2025. For the 2,000 gallon user, they're paying $19 per 1,000 gallons, $19. That, and one other detail, Mr. Braddock did not mention, I'm just about done, just about.
Okay.
Mr. Braddock did not mention that according to the board's own audited financial statements between 2018 and 2025, that profit as a percentage of water revenue rose from 1.3% in 2018 to 46% in 2025. And this board, in your 5-year projection, if I'm mistaken, please correct me, you intend to raise water rates by 10% and golf fees by 3%. Seriously. More than triple the cost for water. I know of neighbors who are struggling to pay $200 monthly water bills, in part so that large golf subsidies can continue. The more affluent among us are playing more cheaply, while the less affluent suffer because of it. A privileged lady in 1789 France, Marie Antoinette by name, responded to people who simply wanted the daily necessity of bread at a reasonable cost. And she responded, let them eat cake. She
Okay.
had rightly earned.
All right,
Your
sir.
time is up. That's fine. We appreciate the
Can
input.
you say what your name was again? The people online said they didn't catch it.
With your 5-year projection, you have had your let them eat cake moment.
What's his name?
I don't know what his name is.
Can you give your name for the recording, please?
Ron Hansen,
Thank you, Ron.
you're welcome.
Mr. Chairman, I'm Pandora Vreeland.
Time's up.
My husband wants to buy one of those. I've got a question for Mr. Lackey, please. Now that we've initiated our remediation program for I&I, did we have any issues during May, which was the third rainiest May on record in 135 years of record keeping?
I'm going to have to defer that to Scott or Matt. I'm ignorant of that.
Okay,
When you say issues, you mean overflows or problems with
overflows,
it?
exactly. We had the third rainiest May. I thought this is a great test case for how well things have gone or not gone.
The way that, the way the rainfall fell throughout May, there was only one time when we had 3 consecutive days of about 3.5 inches of rain, so it was never as bad as what we've had in the past. During that time, we did have elevated levels in 3 of the lift stations, but we had no overflows. Correct. Now,
Fantastic.
remember, we did not get that much rain. We got a considerable amount in Kahidi, but over a longer duration. We did not have an overflow there, so that was good. That's where we've done the most of the remediation.
You got 10 to 15%
I've
improvement,
got,
you
I've
said.
got,
Yeah.
that's, and I need more data because we did have some data gaps. We had a couple of, there were times when it said it actually, after we put there was one set of data that said after we put the risers on, we actually had greater INI. suspect that that's questionable
It's a lot,
data.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
but that's why we're still collecting and getting that.
So
data.
I am thrilled with what your group is doing, your public works people, the guys on the ground, and their effort in the third rainiest May in 135 years is already starting to bear fruit. So I wouldn't be in a huge race to look at a wastewater tank, especially with this new information this woman brought out about the LUB meeting about potentially working at the Karen lift station, a big pinch point, and the fact that they are now talking publicly about their pipeline. And I'm sure that Mr. Lackey will be in there telling him all the nice things about the pipeline and the fact we need room in a bigger pipeline. So thank you all very much for the hard work. Matt, please express our appreciation to your crews who are doing all that excellent work that are paying benefits to us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is John Lamel. I live in Toko Village with the young lady, formerly young lady, that was up here previously in the red T-shirt. She has been my wife for some 52 years. My education is as a civil engineer. For 37 years, I worked with the world's largest privately held engineering and construction firm, starting as an engineer and later finishing my career as a manager of construction on large projects in the field. For the past several years, I have been following the comments concerning the sewage and water issues that we are currently trying to resolve. I have met with Mr. Lackey and Mr. Zika because they appeared to have the best understanding of the problems. They have shown me that they are both knowledgeable and experienced with the problems that we face. I'm aware of Jacobs Engineering through discussions with my clients, associates, and people in the firm I worked for. Jacobs was not the appropriate firm for this type of work for the same reason that I would not recommend the firm that I worked for. These are very large firms. Very large firms demand very large profits. Small projects are generally ignored by very large firms because they do not produce any significant amount of profits for the future years and the investors. To that end, I make the observation that this is not a fault, this is reality. The problem we face in this village is the result of, initially, an inadequate design by the developer. Apparently, they missed irrigation. I don't know how you do that. Secondly, we have had a lack of we've had a lack of consistent preventive maintenance from day one. The errors are already made because we are human. We all make errors. I don't have a problem with that. I'm not here to criticize. This is not a fault. This is just a reality. While it's easy to point blame at the board and at Jacobs, that will not resolve the issues that we're currently trying to take care of. My sole purpose for getting up today is to provide a suggestion to correct the current problems. And in my mind, that is to retain a experienced, specialized engineering firm that specializes in small, medium-sized developments, I&I, and potable water systems. I think that'll resolve it. If we do not change our current methods, we're all, and everybody in this room knows it with certainty, we're always going to have exactly the same results that we are currently getting, period. Thank you.
Thank you.
Penny Mansko from Mialacqua. Hi. One suggestion, two questions. First suggestion is whoever is whoever's the secretary at the board meeting and here at the town hall, if there's a note taker, would it be possible to take notes and do action items and then follow up of those action items from these town halls and board meetings? Because when I'm watching these various meetings, there's a lot of information being sent out and a lot of action items, but there's no follow-up. So I, as a resident, don't know what is the status of these action items. So I would suggest that
So
going forward.
we don't take minutes for town halls. But if there's action items, I write them down. We do take action items at board meetings, and normally the following board meeting, John in his opening statements tries to summarize, unless someone's presenting on the topic, what was found out in that time. But maybe we can point that out a little bit more, that this is a follow-up item.
Yeah,
thank you.
if you could maybe start out or somehow do follow-up on the action items, in my little mind, it would help me knowing what's going on. Okay, first question is the boat dock path at Tanasi. Scott, I think this is for you or maybe Matt. The path going from the parking lot to the boat dock ramp is all gravel. It is very difficult to walk on there. If you have carts with small wheels on there, or if you're walking down there with sandals, it is very difficult to walk on there. So is there some way, or maybe is there a plan on paving that path down to the boat ramp, down to the boat dock?
That path will be paved when the Tanasi construction is complete, because that path is integral part of the area outside of the cart barn, and it cannot be paved at this point because it's not down to the level it needs to be. We actually have to still remove some soils from there, and so unfortunately, it will be that way for another year.
It is very difficult to walk.
I understand
Okay,
that. We have tried compacting it as much
Yeah.
as we can, and we're trying to keep it mud-free and all of that, but yes, I am aware of that.
Okay.
There is nothing we can do. I'm sorry.
Wow, okay. Then the weeds around the ramp going down to the boat slips, the weeds were cut, they were extremely high, but the weed debris was left all over the boat ramp. And we then take that down onto the boat ramp and onto our boats. So when they're cutting the weeds, could they please clear the debris out there so it makes it a little bit easier? Okay, thank you, I would appreciate that. And then my last question, Beth, this is for you. In your presentation, you had talked about direct realtor revenue, and I think it was $141,000, if I read that correctly. What is that? I'm just curious.
So it's not just realtors. So the realtors that we work with, that partner with, they pay to be in the program. And we have contractors that pay for advertising. We have some screen advertising. So all of that together equals the 141.
Oh, okay. Is there certain realtors that you get that from, or?
Yeah, there are 7 realtors that have been in the program for a number of years, and they're mostly focused in Telco Village, like Lakeside, Remax Excels, Remax Preferred,
So that's included as?
Telco Realty.
Okay, so that's included as part of your revenue for your budget purposes?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Kevin Murphy from Tanasi Shores. I would like to ask about the status of the Tanasi Golf and Training Facility. I've tried to look at past meetings and any kind of record of a plan or a program or whatever, and have not been able to find any progression of it, other than that it was on the budget 2 years ago, I believe, and disappeared from it when the water program got started. Just like to know who's going to pay for it and a timetable that it's projected to happen in.
Well, right now, there's an effort underway by Timeless Teleco to pay for it. So they've been on a campaign now for many months that will continue, and their goal is to raise 100% of the cost for that simulator program, including the furniture.
That's not what I'm referring to. the
Oh.
driving range and
Oh,
par three course.
we've never actually considered a par three course that I'm aware of, but,
It's in our communication.
well, again, the board has not considered it. The driving range has been a goal of golf for many years now. The question is funding. And while we're in this infrastructure repair mode, the agreement was that there is no new amenities considered, in which that would be a new amenity. So until we get over this hump of fixing our infrastructure, there's no way we're going to consider adding new amenities because we don't have the capital. That's kind of where we stand today.
Okay, there's a different message out there, and I can forward to you if you'd like to see it.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I know golf would love to have it, and it's just, from a board perspective, our stance at this point is no new amenities.
Okay, and just one other comment. When you receive the telegram, or I'm not sure which communication it is, some departments have meeting agendas, what's going to be discussed at the meeting. Other departments, such as golf and communications, just say, approve meeting minutes, da-da-da-da. You might have more participation from the public and people to show up for them if what was going to be discussed at the meeting might be part of the meeting, published meeting agenda. Thank you.
Yeah, we could take that,
Yeah, we try to publish them when we get them, if we get them in time for it to be published before their meeting.
Well, I know
So-
for sure golf has never had one.
that's good input for Casey.
Hello, Marcia Kaiser, Coyote Neighborhood. Thanks for having us here. A couple questions. First for Beth. Thanks for the marketing update. Do you have any indication of whether the $80 water fee has impacted the decline in home sales?
We do have a lot, and Joe actually has a street sample, so I'm going to let Joe answer that real quick.
Yes, we have started in Q4 '24 a follow-up survey of all the participants of our discovery packages. We have very few responses. I think we've sent out since the end of by the end of March, we've sent out 192 surveys. We've gotten a 40% return rate, which is around 82 responses. Interestingly, only 2 of those responses have made any reference to water and sewer, and those 2 responses indicated they were still considering Tellico Village.
Some more responses needed, but encouraging at the start.
Yeah, we've also asked a lot of realtors about the homes in which they're listing.
Yeah.
And very few said it had anything to do with the water and sewer. Most was life changes, loss of a spouse, health-related.
Okay, good news. On the water and sewer, did the POA direct Jacobs Engineering not to consider I&I or working with other suppliers like LUB in the design of their solution?
The initial direction to them back in, from the previous leadership prior to Chet, was that the relationship between LUB and Tellico Village was not good. And so Tellico Village had to solve the problems of Tellico Village within Tellico Village. So hence there was no discussion there. And also at that time, LUB did not have the plans that they currently have.
As well as the I&I, they directed not to consider?
That is not a correct statement.
Okay.
LUB, Jacobs was looking at the I&I and I&I remediation, but at that time, the I&I remediation was not what we're doing. It was a complete inspect every possible place that there could be I&I, which is not just the lids, but it's also the two pipes and the conduit that goes in there, and consequently, it was considered cost prohibitive, and that was part of the Jacob study as to why they didn't do that. And so we've got a very different program right now.
So since we have a very different program on I&I that we still need some data on, but it looks like it'll have an impact, and since the relationship with LUB is changing, does that change the design solution that was presented?
That's what we're looking at right now.
And so how will that design solution change be evaluated or communicated? For example, I've heard that the wet well solution that was in, and I'm not an engineer in this sort of stuff, it would be significantly different if there was the storage tank versus not having the storage tank. That's just an example of some of the other things that are all in play here that are affecting the design. Does that?
Yes, I really don't want to get into discussion on that right now, only because I don't want to create a huge argument of the three engineers in the room deciding that I would have done it differently than what was done there. All of those options are being looked at and will be evaluated as part of the solution, as part of the decision, as I think everybody said.
So are you saying that we won't go forward until we really have all of these moving parts understood and a complete solution repackaged to spend money on?
I think that's a board decision, and we will be giving the board the information in the next couple of weeks as to what the recommendation would be going forward.
Okay. Well, so my question should be to the board is, with all these moving parts, I mean, how do we get to the, and I don't expect an answer right now, but how do we get to a point of really having enough information on all the moving parts to know that a system that we're designing is really the best system for us with all these questions in the air? Just a difficult one for you to answer.
Just really quickly, I just want to say that we thank everybody for the questions and comments. We have about 12 minutes left in this room before we're going to have to get out so we can take down all of our equipment before the woodworkers get in here at 5.
Okay, thank you for that. My name's Mark Warner. I live in Mialacqua. Just a couple of comments on these bids that came in. Sorry? I spent 31 years in the heavy construction and mining business, and we quote everything. We take bids on most everything. And I've worked with dealers for over 31 years and companies like Bechtel on providing quotes for equipment. Here's what I've learned. When you get one bidder back out of 4, it tells you a few things. First, it tells you the other 3 don't want to bid on it because they don't think it's either going to make them any money or they can actually get it done. Because maybe the drawings are not accurate enough, or maybe they didn't want to work for the company that's actually asking for the bid. So those are 2 possibilities. Secondly, when you get a bidder back and he is he's over double what your estimate is, that tells you that he doesn't want the job. Now, is he busy? Well, of course he is. But he really doesn't want the job, so he bids it more than double. And the reason he bids it more than double is that if you're stupid enough to take his bid, he makes a ton of money. That's how it works. That's how the bid service works. That's 31 years of experience. That's what it tells me. In fact, I'll give you another one. I was lucky enough to bid on the equipment that went in the Panama Canal update here over the last 15 years. We bid all the equipment. It's all Caterpillar. I signed the documents for taking back the equipment after the bid. So I know how a bid works. I understand that process. I probably understand it better than you do. So that's enough for a comment. Now, a few other things. You mentioned, Scott, that Jacobs is a big, great company. That's not my opinion of them. But I won't go where I go, where I've been with them. I'll only mention 2 things. 1, experienced engineers, like you claim they are, would have known our pumps weren't 17 years old. They would have known they were 7 years old. They didn't know that, so they didn't do an investigation that was very in-depth, number 1. Number 2, they would have known those pumps for variable speed capability. And that's all that's required is a board to allow for variability of the pump. So there's a little more nits and lights that go in it, but that's the biggest thing. Once you have that, and you have that capability, you can monitor it off-site. So you can sit in a little room somewhere with all of your TVs, and you can watch this, and as flows increase, the pump increases. That's how it works. The pump increases flow. It's a gear pump, so it can go up. It can go up and down. It's not a variable speed pump. Don't smile. I'm giving you the facts. I don't like that. So finally, John mentioned that you missed the irrigation requirement. That's the company that you have quoting this business. So your two great engineers missed 2, maybe 3 big elements that go into the solving of our problem here in terms of capacity. Finally, Lynn got up and mentioned about LUB, and LUB, as we know, I think I'm right, because a number of people have told me this, have in fact plans for another pipe underneath the Tennessee River. They are now in process of getting design for that, and they are in process of getting funding for it. That pipe will increase capacity for us. The problem, the net root cause of the problem is not us. The net root cause of the problem is their capacity at LUB. I've been here since 2008. They've never had a program or a project, okay, in those years until just recently. They have admitted they've got a capacity issue, and I'll tell you why they did. Because I have with me a consent decree. Consent decree was a challenge between a environmental group in the area and LUB. And so they went and they investigated all of their spills in the year of 2016 to January of 17. So you would expect that. They paid a lot of penalties, didn't they?
Mark,
Hey,
you're gonna have
Mark,
to
we need to move on.
They paid nothing. They paid zero. So
If you have a
using
question,
people
please state
behind
the
you that would
question.
like to talk, and we've got like less than 10 minutes left.
Well, thanks again for letting me speak.
You're not discussing.
Just as a response to a couple of comments that were made this evening, the young lady who talked about the updates, I know I positioned from an HOA perspective that the community would really like to see and have a place on your website that they can go and get the latest and greatest updates on all of these initiatives that we talked about this afternoon. It's very arduous to go through 2 hours worth of presentations to get those updates. So if you guys would please entertain her suggestion, I second something. It doesn't have to be long, just a brief summary of where you are on the reserve funding, where we are on TAP, where we are on these, I think would add a whole lot of value. To the gentleman who cited some survey results, I will say this. The HOA attempted early this year to do a survey. We got a lot of feedback, not that much that was believed. And I can tell you from the survey results that the gentleman just stated before, I wasn't included in that survey. I didn't get a chance to have my voice spoke. So I will ask that if we can't get support behind the HOA doing a survey on TAP and the $80 service fee, that the HOA does this survey and allow everyone to speak, give them all the opportunity, but don't, stop this stuff where people are doing surveys with a select few, and let's do it with everybody. Thank you.
John Olson, Tanasi. Mike gave a pretty good chronological explanation at the last board meeting on water projects. However, the critical data used to justify the elevated storage tank was not outlined. After the contract with Loudoun Utility Board in 2020, both PSAC and Jacobs determined that booster pumps and supply line upgrades would be needed. These conclusions were presented in reports from data obtained in mid-2021, just 6 months after the contract. Jacobs published an extensive engineering report, and PSAC published a master plan. In late '22, more than a year after Jacobs and PSC studies, the million-gallon LUB storage tank on West Cemetery Road was completed. In mid-23, POA management presented an alternative solution to the 21 recommendations of booster pumps and supply lines, that being an elevated 1 million gallon storage tank at Chota. The study behind this recommendation, which stated it used the master plan, came from the 2021 data and reports. Thus, this 23 proposal, which is our TAP 1.0, did not include the effect of LUB's 1 million gallon storage tank on the POA water system. I think we have to look at an evaluation of the effect of LUB's water tank on West Cemetery Road and conduct an assessment so we can be assured that the 1 million gallon storage tank being proposed at Chota, an estimated at $9 million, is not duplicating what already is present.
Thank you for those comments, John. I think the board at the last board meeting actually approved a task order to have that exact study done, and we're in the process of doing that.
Okay, I mean, that's great. I have not seen any details of what is being asked of Jacobs. So, I'm just saying that as far as I can find in public documents.
Everything you mentioned is included. We have a
Okay.
complete task order with them, and I summarized all the questions that I received from everybody, not only the board members, but a number of the concerned residents. All of that is part of that and will be included in Jacob's study.
Is that outline available anywhere? No?
I've got it, I just don't know whether I'm allowed to release it. If I can release it, I'm more than happy to do so, but
No.
yes.
That's okay. We just keep going on. With Jacobs Engineering being used as the sole sourcing, why are we not going out and checking the market and see if an engineering firm with the expertise that installs water tanks wants a quote on this, because we could give them our diagrams, our flows, our pressures. I'm uncomfortable saying we have a sole source just because Jacobs has done the work before. We know from experience that Jacobs is capable of doing. We've also seen a case where they kind of tilted the scale a certain way in regard to not relying on certain experts. These are not my comments. They are the comments of a board member several years ago, and they were endorsed by another board member of that same time frame. So several years ago, prominent members of the board had questions about Jacobs Water recommendations. What has changed?
All right, we only have time for one more question, so 3 minutes. Thank you.
Gary Zika, quick 3 questions. Is one to Scott on the Tanasi. Do you know how much to date, how many more change orders in terms of dollars you've had? You've mentioned on the schedule's over 2 months behind. What's the dollar amount?
We are still running about $150,000 under the GMP.
But does that include all the change orders?
That includes all the change orders.
That they've even thinking about submitting for the water line, for the extra dirt work?
All of those have been submitted and approved by the board.
Approved by the board?
I'm sorry, approved by the board representatives on the committee. It's
Okay.
all below the GMP, therefore it doesn't need board approval, and we had that discussion with the board a couple of months ago.
So that's eaten into the contingency funds?
Not the contingency funds, it is part of the GMP.
Part of the contract that you had?
Part of the contract, yes.
Right, which is the contingency funds that were added to it. Okay. Third one, or second one, is on Jacobs Engineering. January 24, I sent a note to all the board members at that point. And after I'd only been here, had probably about 2 months, 3 months of looking at what was going on in the village. And my recommendation back then, this is 1.5 years ago now, was you got to get rid of Jacobs because, as you've heard from a lot of different residents, we're overpaying Jacobs. We don't need the horsepower that Jacobs has. The horsepower only is the overhead that you got to pay for it. They don't give us all the time. There may be some experts, but those aren't the experts that are working on our projects. And it's just, I don't know how to get that point across. Yes, you've spent some time. You've spent a lot of money with Jacobs, probably getting close to another $3 million and gotten 0 projects out. If I was a board member, I'd be ashamed of that. So I still stick with, you got to get rid of Jacobs and start with new engineers. There's plenty of new engineers out here. Third one, the wet well, Mike, you talked about, the wet well, the existing wet well isn't designed. You weren't at the meeting the other day when Jacob says, we could design a wet well any way you want. If you want a big one, the same size as we got today, we could design that. And it's just a matter of putting baffles in it. Our existing wet well has baffles. Our existing wet well was designed by an engineer for Cooper. There's nothing wrong with our wet well. Ask one of any other of the PSAC members that did they ever go out and look at that wet well? There was one, because he and I went out in there, and it wasn't any of the ones that had been on the PSAC for many years. We're the only two that went down, crawled around, and looked at it. There's nothing wrong with that wet well today. Everybody's afraid of it because it's 30 years old. Well, concrete lasts hundreds of years, and it's been maintained. Probably one of the only things that have been maintained around here, they put a coating on the inside, but it has been maintained. So your existing wet well is fine. And it can be designed, and Jacobs confirmed at the meeting, it can be designed, and they even talked about putting pumps in there. The existing system had different pumps in there. We've got new pumps. Jacobs didn't know that. And again, I just challenge the people, look at the facts, visit the sites.
All right, thank you all so much for attending today.